Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Senior Spotlight. Today, I'm Tim Durkin, and I'm joined with a very special guest. You might know him as the executive editor of The Yellow Jacket, news director and producer at WCTV, and many other titles. There's only one man that can fit that description. So Micah, I'll just ask you first, why did you come to Waynesburg?
Well, I think I've got a pretty interesting story of how I got to where I'm at now. I initially came to Waynesburg for two reasons. Well, maybe more like three. The main two were I wanted to be a chemistry major. I wanted to study, a STEM field. My plan was chemistry undergrad, physics master's, physics PhD. I go teach at Caltech. That didn't really work out. As you can see, that's why I'm sitting here. The second reason, I wanted to play soccer. I got contacted by then head coach Brad Heatheis. Played 2 years here, and that was one reason that I really did pick this school. And I guess a third reason, maybe a lesser reason, but still pretty important, is I really liked the campus. It had a kind of a small town feel. It felt like a family. I liked the layout of it. It's a really beautiful campus. So those three reasons were probably the main reason that I came here. But those reasons definitely changed for why I stayed.
Yeah, so you started out as a chem major, wanted to go on to physics, but obviously right now you're being interviewed for being a comm major. So how'd that change?
Well, I hated lab. That's really the best way to put it. Lab for me was the worst part of being a STEM major. I was that weird kid that loved the classes. I did very well in my math and my chemistry classes. I enjoyed those. The issue was I really, really hated going to lab. And that made me realize that, if I hate going to lab now, the odds of me hating my job when I graduate are pretty significant. So I had started writing for the school newspaper, the Yellow Jacket. Coming in, I kind of had an interest in journalism and news. I've always liked the news. I read the newspaper when I was 3 years old until my parents started hiding it from me because there's, some things that aren't good for a three-year-old to read. So I already had that interest. Like I said, I had begun writing for the school newspaper. And when I realized I needed to change my major, that was really the only option that I had. So from there, I started taking a couple comm classes. I made the jump the 2 semesters later to officially change after about a semester of transition. And I haven't looked back, and it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, well, when you first joined the department, what was kind of your experience with that?
It was definitely interesting. In a lot of ways, I was a sophomore trying to do freshman and sophomore things, trying to get involved and find my fit, while also realizing that I was a year ahead of a lot of the other students. So kind of an accelerated way of getting involved. I had to get good at a lot of things very quickly. It was really challenging at times to be able to develop skills so that I wasn't behind with my classmates. And that's something I'm really proud of how I managed to change so dramatically my life path within that 6 months, 8 months that it took. And COVID actually kind of helped in that transition because the spring of my freshman year, I was able to, got sent home, and that's kind of where that transition period began. So in a lot of ways, I had kind of the same experience as a lot of other comm students that were freshmen at that time.
Yeah, so you're talking about all the different activities that you're involved in. You started out with the Yellow Jacket, eventually moving on to WCTV and Woosen. So how do you juggle all of that?
I don't know sometimes. It's truly difficult. One thing, it's how I was before I even became a communications student. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be as involved as possible. I wanted to, make the most of my college experience. So that was a big goal of mine. And you just realize you have to make sacrifices along the way if you want to make that happen. There's been a lot of late nights for me, a lot of late nights, a lot of days where I'm running on a couple of hours of sleep because there just isn't enough time to get everything done and still get a full night's rest. So realizing that sacrifices have to be made is probably one of the biggest factors in how I manage to juggle my time. And also just, prioritizing, figuring out what needs the most time spent on it and making cuts where you have to.
Mm-hmm. So you're executive editor of the Yellow Jacket right now. What did the path look like getting there?
So when I began writing, I kind of had an idea that I wanted to be the executive editor by my senior year. It was the thing that got me started here the most. Initially, I thought I wanted to write, and that's since changed. But it was always kind of the goal. So everything I did to that point kind of pushed me one step closer to that. I became an editorial assistant my sophomore year, the region editor of my junior year, and then now senior year, here I am, executive editor. So kind of a very linear and slowly progressing path.
Mm-hmm. So sort of transitioning to another part of the comm department, WCTV, you've taken on a couple different positions in there. What are some of the things you're most proud of from WCTV?
The things I'm most proud of, I've been really proud and humbled by the work that people on my show do, the Waynesburg Effect. I remember saying multiple times last year, the first year I produced it, just how humbled I was by the work that was done. We've done some really cool things with the Waynesburg Effect. We've interviewed, candidates to be, statewide judges. We've interviewed 2 candidates who ran to be on the state Supreme Court. That's pretty special. We've interviewed leading Senate candidates before. And we've also done a lot of really good local political coverage, which is something that Greene County, like many other rural counties, they don't have it. And that's something that I'm really proud of. And it wouldn't have been done without the incredible crew that I've had. And a lot of those students, they're not even comm students. They're people who are taking the time because they think it's valuable, like I do. I think it's very valuable. So that's one thing, maybe a broader thing I'm very proud of my time at WCTV. One specific thing, of course, is the election night special of last fall. That's definitely the culmination of everything that I've done here so far. It took everything. It took political reporting. It took technical work. It took, a lot of writing, graphic design. All the skills that I've acquired here and developed were put on display for that one single project. And I think that's probably the best capstone of my time at Waynesburg that I could have asked for.
Mm-hmm. So you're also president of Lambda Pi Eta, which is the Communication Honor Society. So you obviously get good grades, get a lot out of your classes. What do you think of the classes at Waynesburg? Like, what have you gotten out of them? And like, are there some things from those comm classes? Do you think you're going to see them in your career?
It's a definite mix. Over my time at Waynesburg, I've realized that I really am a big proponent of a liberal arts education because you get such a wide range of perspectives that cover a variety of topics, and a lot of those topics are valuable, especially as someone that wants to do journalism. I've taken courses in economics and political science, and I've a lot of history courses. I'm one class away from having a history minor. Having that range of things that you learn, that's really important, and it makes you more of a well-rounded person. And I think that is what makes students from Waynesburg really special. They get such a good breadth of skills and knowledge. In terms of just comm-specific classes, there's definitely those classes you pick out that have been really, really helpful that you've learned a lot in. Things like social media production with Matt Stoltz, I would argue has probably been the class that I've gotten the most out of, that I apply every day on a practical basis. All of the broadcast journalism-ish courses with Melinda Roeder, those have been really useful as well. And even news writing and reporting really strengthened me as a writer and helped me, refine the skills that I had. So, and that's just naming a handful. All the comm classes have definitely benefited me in some, at least in some small way.
Mm-hmm. So the entire time that I've known you, at least, you've been an upperclassman because I met you when you were a junior. And something that I've noticed about you is that you're always willing to help. No matter who it is, you're always willing to give your time if you have it. And even if you don't, you still set aside time to help somebody. So what makes you want to do that up here on the floor?
I think a lot of it that I attribute to, and if you would have asked me this question probably a year or two ago, I wouldn't have had a good answer. I've realized that a lot of it is my upbringing. Like, I know sometimes I may come across as a little bit brusque and, but at the same time, I really value helping people and supporting them. And I think that, as I've gotten older, I've become more and more like my father. And I do think that's the biggest reason. Like, it's the way that, my father and my whole family really operate, that, we're going to be honest with you and upfront, but if you ever need anything, we're going to be there. And, it's really been instilled in me that that's the way that you should behave and act and, help other people. So if I had to put one reason, I do think that the main one is my family upbringing. I take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in the values that I learned growing up. And yeah, that's probably my answer. And like I said, if you would have asked me that a year or two ago, I wouldn't have had a good answer for you.
So in just a few weeks now, you're going to graduate and moving beyond that. What is next for Micah Leith?
Well, I can announce that I've accepted a title in news management at WOAY TV, where I have spent about 3 weeks over last winter break working. I'm really excited for the opportunity. I get to, come into that newsroom, try to bring some fresh ideas, leverage the education that I got here, try to increase the overall news product. I'll be able to help guide stories, which is something, I've had to do as executive editor, news director, and region editor is, coming up with stories, getting them assigned. That's gonna be a major part of my day-to-day job. So, having a chance to go in and have a lot of creative freedom to help guide things while still contributing to an overall team, that's what I'm really excited about. And, it was very unexpected. So I'm really excited about that opportunity and, only up from here.
Yeah, and then last question for you. Do you have a favorite memory in the comm department?
Oh, a favorite memory. See, it's really hard to pick just one. And a big issue I run into is I don't have the best memory ever. There's a whole backstory behind that, as many people up here know. But my favorite memory, the election night special does rank very, very highly. In fact, if I think that is my favorite memory, the election night special. I could point to, individual Woosten productions and things of that nature, but I don't think anything will beat the feeling, the intense fear and I guess anxiety going into the live election night special, and then just the fun and the joy I had doing it, and then just the sense of pride and I guess accomplishment and just feeling humble with all the help that I got. I don't think anything can beat that. I do think that is probably the pinnacle of my time here at Waynesburg.
Well, thank you, Micah, and thank you for all you do for the department. You will be sorely missed. I can say that for sure. That will do it for this edition of Senior Spotlights. Be sure to catch all the previous episodes on WCTV's YouTube channel and all the other episodes that will be coming out in the coming weeks. Thank you for watching, and take care.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.